Hi everyone, this is Matt, and today I'm going to show you two ways on how to frame your zoom window with OBS so we don't have to show the zoom meaning control buttons on the bottom of your screen. So why would I want to use OBS with Zoom to record when we can use the Zoom record features? Well, when working as a legal videographer, what we do is videotape and document depositions. Either we record the depositions in person or we record the depositions remotely using Zoom so we can be there virtually. As a legal videographer, when recording, we always like to have a backup recording just in case something unexpected happens. Plus, most of the time, the client court reporting firm would like us to have a master recording and a backup recording. The backup recording would be recorded to the Zoom cloud online, and the master recording would be with the OBS Zoom recording that is recorded locally to my computer. So when we turn in the OBS recording, we try to make the video trial presentation ready with the least amounts of post-production editing. That saves everyone time from preparing and fixing the video for the presentation. And that includes removing the zoom buttons on the bottom of the screen. So let's get started. Over here are the zoom buttons that I'm talking about, and luckily for me, I have Zoom ready. And so the first thing I'm going to do here is I notice that these buttons are actually stable and they're always shown. Sometimes the buttons go up and down, and let me show you. I'll open up the settings and go to general, and this one says always show meeting controls, but if I uncheck this, the buttons disappear and they pop up and down when I scroll the mouse over it. But for our purposes, we need them to be stable so that they're always on top. So I'm going to go back to the video settings, and I'm going to go back to general, and then I'm going to hit always show meeting controls, and now it'll always stay on top. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to open OBS. So I click on OBS. Now OBS popped up. Over here, I don't have a Zoom window. I'm assuming that you're starting from scratch, but if you already have other sources, then you can add them, or this will be an additional source to add. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this source area and I'm going to hit the plus mark. I'm going to hit the plus, and I have all these options that come up. What I'm going to hit is window capture because I want to capture a Zoom window, but don't get that confused with a display capture, because if I hit a display capture, what it captures is the whole window and anything that happens in your monitor on that window. That's being displayed. So I'm just going to capture a window capture. I'm going to change the name. I'm going to change it to Zoom window. And I hit OK. The next thing I noticed that it went blank. So what I want to find is Zoom meeting, which is the Zoom exe. And the window is actually all white, so it's actually not showing what we would see in Zoom, except for we see the controls here. So we have this window field, and now I'm going to go to right below it, which is the capture method. Sometimes automatic doesn't do it, so I toggle between these below it, and I'm going to hit Windows 10, or if you have Windows 11. And if you don't have Windows, these options, you might want to click on the graphics card if it shows up. So this pops in. I'm going to uncheck capture cursor right here, because if I'm recording, I don't want them to see them moving, my cursor moving around on the screen. Hit OK. So notice that it didn't fill up the whole screen. It's capturing Zoom, but just capturing a portion of it. So what I want to do is just fill the whole screen when I record it so I can get the highest resolution. So I can either right click it here from the source and then hit transform and then fit to screen, or I can right click it on the actual image of Zoom, and that'll bring us to the same place. And I'm going to go to transform, and I'm going to fit the screen. So now it looks like it's about the same aspect ratio as I have here on my Zoom window. If I, oops, I popped it too far. If I right click it and I hit transform and I hit stretch to screen, you notice it actually becomes out of proportion compared to the Zoom one. So I'm going to go back and I am going to fit to screen again. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you, this is the original one. I'm going to lock this and I'm going to hide it. I'm going to prepare this now to actually remove these buttons on the bottom. You actually don't need to keep this one, but I just want to show you the difference. So the first method to removing these buttons is the easiest way, and I'm just going to basically stretch it to make it fit. So I'm going to go in here, Windows Capture, and Zoom window stretched. I'll hit OK. I'm going to go to Zoom meeting, find Zoom again, and then I'm going to do the same as the last one. Going to transform it and fit to screen. So here, to actually eliminate these, I want to make sure that this Zoom window is not some strange shape, and I want it to be consistent all the time according to my monitor, because you notice how if I move it to a different size, it also changes the aspect ratio. So I'm going to maximize the screen, and then I'll move from speaker, and I have actually the witness pinned, or if you don't have a witness, this participants window pinned, so I know it doesn't change from person to person. And I'm going to hit full screen. Make sure it's on speaker, hit full screen. So now it fills up the whole screen. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit Alt-Tab to bring up my OBS. If you're using a Mac, it's Command-Tab, but since this is a PC, I'm using Alt-Tab. And now I'm going to view this, go back to Properties, and I don't see it, so I'm going to toggle back and forth like I had mentioned. So now it's on Automatic. I go to Windows, and now it's being shown again. And I'm going to hit OK. So to get rid of these buttons on the bottom, what I need to do is, the fastest, easiest way is to stretch it. So I'm going to try to get rid of these black columns here on the right and left side, and I'll just pull it down. So when I'm stretching it, this red color box is the bounding box, and they have these little squares. These are called handles. So I'm going to grab a handle, and I'm going to move this over until I don't see that much black. It's on one side, and then I'm going to move this to the other side. So now the black columns are gone. Whoops. And lastly, I'm going to pull the bottom to get rid of the buttons. It goes a little bit too far, so you kind of have to play with it. Sometimes you might have to reset it because it didn't move exactly the way you want it. I'll go to Transform, and I'll go back to Fit to Screen. If you have go into Transform Edit, they have these extra positional alignments. This is the size, and this one says top left. So that means when I start scaling it or pulling on these handles, it's going to start from the top left. You can change it to center, and then it would change the position. So if I hit center, you notice it jumps off the screen because it's centered it along the middle where it first started. I'm going to go back to top left. This is center and this is inner bounds. I can move it to stretch to the bounds, which is the outside of the bounding box, or the bounding box. And I can move it again. So what I'll do is I'll move this side. And I want to catch that a little bit there. And then I'll move this over a little. So now it's pretty much close. Where it fills the whole screen, I'm aligned at the top. And there's no buttons on the bottom. I want to save that, so I lock it. So this is the fastest way to get rid of the buttons on the bottom. Okay, so let's say I want to do it the other method, which is the second method that I mentioned. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hide it. I click on the eyeball and I locked it so it can't be moved. So here's the last method. It's a little bit more work. I'm going to make this again zoom window, but I'm going to use the crop tool. I'm going to move it back to zoom meeting. I'm going to toggle it so I can see it, and I'm going to hide the cursor. I'm going to hit OK. So now I can see everything. But instead of doing these handles, sometimes if you move it too far, it goes off the page and then you can't grab it. Then you have to move it over manually, but then you lose the handles on the other side. So now it's completely in the middle, and no matter how far you stretch it, you might have to stretch it really big or small to see if you can find the handles. So that could be a problem. I can try expanding it. It didn't find the handles on the top. So then what I would do is I would reset it and it goes back to the middle. But if I want to make sure that it fits right, I can go to right click it, and right above properties is the word called filters. So I click on this filter and it pops in a new window, and I hit the plus. I know it's kind of buried. I hit crop/pad. Now this allows me to crop the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crop it on the left. I suppose I can type it in manually. I'm going to open this up a little bit further so you can see it. Or I can just hit the up and down buttons like I'm doing. It takes a little bit longer. So now it's kind of close to the edge. And then I'm going to do, that was the left side, now I'm going to do the right side. It's a little bit more slower, and it actually in my perspective might be a little bit more accurate, but you don't have to play with the red handles and the bounding box. Now I'm going to crop the bottom. So it's slowly cutting it. There we go. And I'm going to hit close. So now it's perfect, except for it doesn't fit in the screen or the working area of OBS. I'm going to right click it, transform. I'm going to fit to screen, and I'm going to lock it in place, and you're good to go. It's almost perfect. I still have a few black lines here, but all I have to do is nudge it a few more increments in the filters tool to actually make sure that it's perfect. And there you go. We've effectively gotten rid of all the zoom buttons on the bottom. So why do we want to get rid of the buttons on the bottom? So that when we turn the video in, it's prepared for trial where they don't have to edit out the bottom of the zoom, so it looks more professional where it's only the witness and there's no extra black spaces on the right or left, and there's no buttons on the bottom like over here that we see. So this would all have to be edited out by the court reporting firm, or they would ask you to remove all this on the black column on the right, the left and the right, and the bottom meaning control buttons. So that's my tutorial on how to remove the buttons.